Hey guys, this is Joe and Vanessa with Grace Family Love. Today we are going to be talking about what we wish we knew before we got married.
Yes, and if you're like us and you feel like something's just straight up blindsided you, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any more content. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Grace Family Love podcast. We are back with you for episode number 57.
Yes. Hey guys. So I'm back and I wanted to say thank you guys for the people that reached out. It's funny because I was actually off of social media and people found a way to actually message me and
awesome.
Just tell me, that they were praying for me and that they wish that I had a fast recovery. So I definitely appreciate you guys. You guys are an amazing community and we just love you guys. Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about something that's, a little bit interesting because I don't know if you're married, and you know what, even if you are married or you're planning to get married, this works for anybody. Why? Because you can still use this and change it to just kind of fit you and benefit you.
Yeah. Because
you're just like, okay, that's what we need to work on. So I think that this is something I wish I knew before. Like we said, we're going to be talking about 3 things that we wish we knew before we got married. To me, one of the main things that I wish I would have known is that you're going to need Jesus, like straight off the bat. Like you're going to need him and you're going to need, like, seriously. And if you're just like, I don't know about that, Vanessa, like, no, you haven't been married long enough. If you don't know yet, you need Jesus. And the reason why is because everybody has attitudes, right? Or characters, or just the way that you were brought up. It's just different. It's so different. So when you have God in your life, like, he is that lubricant, that grace that allows you to know, like, be nice to the guy because he doesn't know better. Be nice to the guy. Be nice to the guy. Be nice to the guy. No matter the if, buts, why, where, when, like, nothing that matters. Just be nice to him. And I just wish I would have known that instead of just like hating him for the beginning of the years, and instead of allowing grace to just kind of come in and be like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be
Yeah. Okay. So you said lubricant. I want to explain something in case people are like, what?
What the heck?
So something that we were taught that was extremely valuable in the early, part of our relationship was that we were learning about the grace of God. And our pastor taught it to us this way. If you imagine inside of an engine, there are gears and these things that work together. If the gears are not in alignment, then the gears will grind each other out. And what will happen is the motor will not function. Yes. And when the motor doesn't function, then your car's pretty much shot out. So if you imagine that you have these gears that kind of work together and interweave within itself, you need oil in order to keep it cool and be a lubricant in order for those things to function well together.
Yes, think Tin Men.
And so you imagine you have Vanessa on one side, you have me on the other side, and we are completely different. And without something in between us, kind of like a mediator to help us function together,
seriously,
we will end up just grinding each other out. We will be sick and tired of each other eventually, and we won't function. Yeah. So imagine now that gear with the oil, God is the one that helps these two people that are completely different, helps us to function together. So therefore, he is the lubricant. The grace in the marriage helps us function together. So that's where that came from.
He's the brains. That's why I keep him around, guys. Because
I have my moments. What happens is I waste them all here, and then when I'm off camera, I just get myself into trouble.
No, he's a good guy. So the second thing would be that marriage is not a fairy tale. It doesn't matter how many movies you watch, how many Korean dramas you watch, Exhibit A over here, or how many novelas or soap operas, or like nothing can really prepare you for the work that you have to do to stay in love. Let's just put it that way.
That's true.
And, because you watch movies and you're just kind of like, oh, it just naturally happens. Or like, oh, if he loves me, he'll bring me flowers. Oh, if he loves me, he'll rub my feet. Oh, if he loves me, like, I don't know. It's crazy. Like, it's just crazy. Like, it makes me want to laugh because I'm just like, poor Vanessa. I wish if I like had little Vanessa, 19-year-old Vanessa, I would just pat her and be like, I feel so sorry for you. Because it's just like the way that I thought, it was so funny. It's so silly now that I think about it. And like, I didn't know that I had to tell him like, I want to go out for a date. I miss you. I didn't know I had to even say like, are we going to have sex anytime soon? Because I think it's been like a couple of days, like even that, like I didn't know that, not that he's not wanting to have sex, but it's just like sometimes just life gets the best of you and you're just like, when was the last time we were intimate with each other? You know what I mean? Like I didn't know all of that, and that you didn't have to take things personal, that you just have to work on like, not that we don't like each other, but it's just that life got in the way, and we need to remind each other that, hey, we're important too, and that we need to be there for each other.
Yeah, I think what would matter too a lot now that I'm hearing you say that, and just so you guys know, we didn't talk about like what each one of our things were. So I'm like kind of nervous right now, like on the edge of my seat. Say? Yeah, because I don't know if I'm about to be put on blast or what, But based on what you said, about the intimacy part, about the sex part, it's a big difference between, because especially in our marriage, newlyweds and all that stuff, there is this honeymoon phase where that the intimacy or the sex part is not really an issue, but what becomes the issue is not the physical act itself, it's the way that it comes about. Yes. Men tend to generally, we know, we know in our mind or in our body saying, okay, I want to have sex or whatever, right? But there's no like that build up, that I don't want to call it. No, I don't want to call it foreplay because it's not that. That gives the inclination of like, this is about to happen, so I'm going to do this to try to butter you up. No, it's those moments outside of the bed, right? Like she said, okay, she shouldn't have to tell me, if you love me, bring me flowers. But if I want to score some brownie points, then maybe I just show up with flowers, right? And those acts of love or those acts of kindness, those random acts will help draw her to me to help her want to be intimate with me. Yeah. So instead of me just like, hey, are you awake? Like, it's time. No, and usually that's what the issue is. It's not the act itself. It's not the sex part itself. It's the fact that there's a lack of intimacy in the process. And so sex is only sex. It's not a moment of intimacy. And that becomes an issue. That becomes a big problem.
Well, to me, it is kind of like foreplay because it's like you're flirting, you're getting there, but outside of the bed. Like, okay, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we call it brownie points, and we joke a lot. Like when he does something nice, I'm just like, oh, that's major brownie points right there. Because it's like, it allows him to know, like, you're on the right track, keep going. I should have like a countdown. You're like, you're 20%, 50%. No, I'm just kidding. So you can keep trying. But, that's kind of, and it comes to that, like, we can laugh about it now versus just like, I have to tell you everything. Like, seriously, like, just with that grouchy attitude, it's like, who's going to want to have sex with that, like type of attitude? Like, nobody's going to have fun, not you or that person. Yeah. So it's more of just that kind of, like the flirting and the, just being with each other without the sex part, For me, another thing would probably be, oh my God, I had it at the tip of my tongue. See, that's why you told me write it down.
So to add a little bit more to what she's saying is that there's this part of marriage where, she said that you don't realize the work that you need to do in order to stay in love. And for that to happen, we have to grow. Like we have to be concerned about the needs of our spouse. And so before marriage, it's generally a part that gets overlooked because we're consumed by the feelings and the emotions and the butterflies and all of that stuff. And so it almost is like our hormones get the best of us, and all the good things that I'm doing it because I have this mission, right? This passion to win her over, to court her, or whatever you want to call it. and she's eating it up, right? And so because I'm doing all of these things, she's just eating it up, and she wants to be with me. We want to be around each other all the time. We want to talk to each other all the time. And so all of that is constantly happening until the buildup of then marriage happens. And then after marriage, we're always together now. So I don't have to, at least I feel like I don't have to always do these things to win her over, because I won. We got married. The problem with that is once all those butterflies go away and the emotional high of it all is gone, then what's left after everything is stripped away is the fact that we have to put some work in now. So all those things that were driving me by my hormones or just this fantasy, and maybe she was feeling that fantasy part too, how, man, it's going to be like this forever. And then that kind of fades away, and we're just left looking at each other like,
what happened?
Yeah, I'm looking at her like, what's wrong? And she's looking at me like, what's wrong with you? Like, I thought it was going to be like this forever. And it's just not the case. So we can't be fooled by the way we feel at the moment and not expect that there's going to have to be some work done eventually.
Yeah. I think the last thing that I would say I wish I knew before we got married is that, I don't want to say like lower your expectations, but
I don't know how to feel about that.
I just like, we just want everything, I guess. And I don't want to say like we, because I don't want to be talking and generalizing for everybody, but for the most part, we're just very like goal oriented or driven. So everything has to meet a certain standards for women. We just have to get there. And like, we want you to be a certain dad. We want you to be like the dad in the movies. We want you guys to be like the husband that, brings the Starbucks cup of coffee and just randomly, or takes us and say, oh, we're going to Disneyland tomorrow morning. Like, I'm not saying just those specific things, but like that type of, we want you guys to be like on the whole time. Yeah. Not knowing that you guys are like human too, and that you guys also just want to like live normally, what I mean, without being on. So that's what I mean, like to just lower your standards and just appreciate every stage that you're in. Or are you laughing?
I can't tell if I'm getting beat up subliminally or not.
Oh my God.
I haven't figured that out yet. Check back with me in a couple of days, see how I'm doing. Yeah, if you don't see me the next episode, then
she left me in a corner outside somewhere. She changed her standards. Yeah. No, like, I'm serious. I just, because I feel like, because I did that with you, like, not that you're horrible now, but I just feel like I just appreciate the things that you do with the kids versus like, like today when you were just like, okay, I'm going to watch, a movie with the boys, instead of saying like, well, yeah, he could have been doing this earlier, or why didn't he do it 2 days ago? You know what I mean? Instead of just acknowledging that you're making an effort to spend time with the kids and just be content and happy no matter how that looks like, and be happy with your effort. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's one, guys.
Well, I think that's where we overlap, because one of the ones that I wish before I got married, I would have had a conversation about expectations specifically for the relationship. And so if you're listening to us for the first time and you don't know about me or us, this is my second marriage. And so I was married before, and it didn't work out. And so that to me is a big indicator that I really don't have it figured out. And so it's not one of those events where you could take that experience and apply it to the second marriage and say, okay, I think I got it figured out now, because it failed. It didn't work. So whatever I was doing, I'm not saying it was all bad and I was all bad, but whatever I thought marriage was, I can't bring those same concepts into this marriage, because if I repeat what I did in the past, right? If I did it exactly how I did it before, then I can't expect different results. I would expect that it probably won't work again. Yeah. So I have to change some things. And so I wish that, before we had gotten married, that we would have talked about the expectations for the relationship. And the reason why is because for that reason, like I would have got to know maybe more clearly what you would have expected of me. And I would have had an opportunity to let you know what I expected of you. And so that to me, I think would have avoided a lot of heartache.
Yeah.
A lot of fights.
I think so. But the crazy part about when you first get married is you don't know what expectations you want. Not really. Because you're just assuming and you're going in like blindfolded. Like you're assuming these things, it's going to be this way. And when you get there, you don't know what you don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I mean, you knew because you knew. But
well, I know what not to do, right? But what I'm saying is that if we sat down and had a conversation and I said, what do you expect from me from here on out? And if you said, well, I always want you to do this and I always want you to do that, I might be like, that's kind of unreasonable. I don't think I can do that.
Yeah. Versus me be like, why is he not always doing this?
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe you would have said, well, then, okay, then if you can't give me what I want, then I'm out.
True.
But at least you would have had that opportunity to do that.
Yes.
Before being married, where then you feel like you're stuck. So that, I think that would have been a healthy, again, I don't know if I'm being subliminally backhanded, but we'll figure it out. You let me know in the comments. What was that? What's up with this? So that would have been one of mine. The other one would have been the expectations for the family. Do we want a family? Generally, I think that happens. In our case, it was a little bit different.
We didn't have a choice.
Yeah, because we started out with kids.
Yeah. So
specific to our situation, being that we had a blended family, I wish we would have spoke more about how we're going to raise the kids.
That would have been huge. Yeah.
How are we going to correct them or discipline them? How are we going to raise them? And so that we could figure out and work together about how we would have made that work. Because I know we did fight a lot about, it was almost like, you don't look at my son, and I remember you picking him up and like cradling him, holding him like so tight. Like, no, I'm serious. What you just said right now is exactly how I felt when I watched you do that. Like, so we would get in a fight and we would argue, and instead of like sitting there and hashing it out with me, she would just go run and pick up Brandon, which is, her son from another relationship. So that's my stepson. And he's been in my life and I've been in his life since he was 2.5. So it's like my boy, Yeah. And so at the time we would fight and argue, and then she would like go, and like run away. And then she would just go pick him up and hold him and like do this. Like, that bad man's not going to break our family. And I'm like, what is happening here? This is not right. It was divisive,
Yeah, it
was problems.
It was rough. So that's why I mean, like, these are the things that I didn't know. Like, I didn't know anything. So the only thing that I knew what to do is like being an introvert and being a person that like I victimized myself all the time, because when I was younger, I was a victim. So I did that for all my life. So therefore, like anybody did something to me, it was everybody's fault. And I just was so hurt. You know what I mean? Like, So therefore my son, since my son at that moment, when I would be like, my son, it was just, you and I are both hurt. We're the victims here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and now that I'm older and now that we've, learned and have done all these workshops and just so much learning, like I see that now big time. Like I was such in a victim mentality and not being able to even know how to have a growth mindset, not even where to start. I don't think at that moment I would even know. That
makes sense. Yeah, that makes totally wish we would have learned that earlier.
So maybe that will add that to another list.
So if you are married or you're considering getting married and your significant other, the person that you're, going to get married with, has a child from another relationship, I'm not saying not to do it. I would really genuinely have a deep heart-to-heart conversation about what to expect, because you're not just marrying the person that you deeply love, you're marrying their ex.
Yes.
And chances are the moment that they find out that you're getting married,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
it's going to be on, simply because
Yes.
I can't express the feeling or why, or it's just what happens to people when they break up that way, and they have a child that bonds them together. And so that bond is forever. It's a piece of each other, right? And so the moment that the ex finds out that they're going to be happy or get married, it's like a switch that gets turned on. Yeah. I'm not saying 100% of the time, but I would boldly say the vast majority of the time, the ex will tend to get kind of vindictive and vicious and do things that seem like nonsensical, but it's just to make life difficult. And it's a lot of times it's unnecessary, but it's just what happens when people are immature. It's just what happens when people don't know how to manage their own emotions and feelings. Yeah. And it's just easy to blame and take it out on somebody else. And you might be stepping into a situation where you may very well be the victim of that lashing out. So the reason why I say it just like that, it's not to scare anybody away or to make you feel, if you're already married, like, oh my God, I'm stuck. This is terrible.
Just prepare yourself.
It's just to know, because the Bible says that my people perish for lack of wisdom. So if you just don't take the time to know and understand, you will always feel like you're second rate. You'll always feel like you're the punching bag for no reason. You'll always feel like you're filled with regret, and you might even start holding a grudge against the person that you love for somebody else that has you don't even need to bring them into your relationship more than they already have to be. So I'm just saying that just to be completely honest, because we love you guys and we've been through it. And sometimes we still go through it, you know? Yeah. The last thing I wish that...
let me say something before I forget please. That one. So with that one, I want to encourage you to just be able to know that when there is a blended family, okay, I know there's a lot of pieces that you're just kind of like, okay, what's going on? So when God is in the mix, you know, I was talking to my son the other time, and he's just like, Mom, why can we not have sex before marriage? So I said, actually, you can. Anybody can have sex. It's doable. However, God doesn't tell us, or not tell us, but he doesn't, advise us to do it, because he's such a loving father that he kind of played everything out the way it should be. So now we go and we create these stories, and now there's this bond. And the thing is that when we break up, like sometimes there's not a closure. There's no ending to it. It's just kind of like brutal, like a rip apart. So when you allow God into your life, he starts to kind of close doors and close chapters, not only mentally, spiritually, and physically. But that's the key. It's God. He has to come and be able to have those doors closed so you can be able to move on. And sometimes you feel like there's such an attachment because those doors are still open. So you need to make sure that before you guys get married, before any of that, or even after, that you pray, close those doors, and just allow God to start healing and bringing a lot of just healing to the situation. So that way both parties can just continue that healing and growth outside of, just kind of, that's it.
That's good. That's good. And then I think the third thing for me that I wish we would have spent more time talking about before we got married is just about the finances, about how we would manage that and how we would work together to reach the goals that we have for ourselves and for our family. The reason why I say that is because it's easy for, especially nowadays, generally it takes two incomes to keep the house running. So if you have, both parties that are working, that are earning, that are doing their part to make things happen in the home and provide, it's easy for one person over the other, especially in a new marriage, to say, well, it's my money, like I earned it, so I'm going to spend it how I please. And generally speaking, that's not a bad thing, right? That you earn and that you decide where your money's going to go. What happens is that if we're making life decisions together and we have to have separate bank accounts because you don't need me to know what you're doing with your money and I don't need you to know what I'm doing with my money, well, then that's a division. And so a division, is really difficult in a relationship to manage. And the Bible says that house divided cannot stand.
Nope.
And it's the little things that add up and build up. And what happens is that now let's say we get into a situation where, I now feel like I have to ask my wife to borrow money in order to make ends meet or make things work. It's an awkward conversation to even have, because if we're married and we are one, the money is our money. I know we joke around. There's that saying, for the women, what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. Like, I get it, right? We men tend to work and we have this joke that women do the spending or whatever, but that's not really how it goes, right? Like we both have our ways of spending money. Yeah. But the problem is that if you feel like you have to borrow money from me, like that's a bad thing. Like we're husband and wife, we're one, we're a team. But the reason why that comes up is because either, like for me, if I get overbearing with the finances and now she feels like oppressed, like, can I even go to the grocery store? Like, that's a bad thing. If you have to ask me to spend money on certain things that you need or that we need for the house, that's something that we might have to investigate further and make sure that we've talked about that. Now, if it's something that we've decided together that we're on a budget, we need to discuss everything that's outside of that budget. Yeah. Key part being that we've talked about a budget. Yeah. When was the last time you talked about a budget? Have you ever talked about a budget? Yeah. Can you even talk about a budget without ending in a fight? And I'm serious. And so what happens is if we start out by having those difficult conversations, then it's easier along the way to grow, to evolve, to develop in that discussion, in that relationship, to make sure that we're never putting each other out or making each other feel like lender and borrower. Yeah. Making each other feel like employee and business owner. Like, that's a strange concept, but it happens. So I would really, I wish that we would have had a better conversation about that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, for this reason alone, that I wouldn't ever want you to feel like I'm the banker and you have to come and make a withdrawal. I want to get to the point where we have it down so smooth that without having to have these in-depth, detailed conversations, we just know that we're so like-minded that we can trust each other, that whatever it is we're going to do with the finances is one, for the best interest of our family, and it's not going to put each other in a bad situation. That's where I think that I would want to be. Yeah. So for us, money was something really, it was very, very touchy for a lot of years, We're just like recently getting into the point where we can talk about it and we can kind of get to the point where it's like, okay, you let me know how you feel. I will let you know how you feel, or I will feel. Yeah. But a lot of the times, because the way that we react, we both get in a place where we're just like defensive. Yeah, very defensive. Each one. So that's why he was saying, like, can you even talk about it? So one of the things that I want you to keep in mind when you have this conversation about money is that you guys are both on the same team. Yeah. And I want you to know that. So when you hear the person speaking, I don't want you to right away already start answering in your head why what you want to say is more important than what that person is saying. I want you to just actually listen. If that person says, this is important to me, then acknowledge that. And if it's not in the budget, just say, you know what, it's not in our budget, but maybe we can make it a goal for us. Yeah. If it's something that's super important to you. But right now we can't spend that money on this because this is the goal that we have in mind. And make sure that you both agree on that goal. And if you both keep in mind each other's interests, why should it be a problem? Yeah. Why is money going to be a problem?
because their needs are important and your needs are important.
That's right.
You know, and if you're able to keep them on a kind of like be realistic, you know what I mean? Don't say like, oh, I want a Ferrari and that's it. I want it. And you're just like, you're making, you know, $300 a month. I'm just being, you know, just crazy here. But be realistic. You know, if that's a goal, just say, okay, it might take us 100 years, but maybe we'll get there, you know, and we'll save $20 a month because that's what we can save. And you got to say, okay, that's okay. Because guess what? We got to pay this, we got to pay this, we got to pay this, and we got to pay that. And that's important too. So make sure that you guys keep that in mind. That person's important. You're important. Work together. You're a team.
Yep. Yeah, and that's it. I wish that we would have had those conversations in more depth and detail. So it has taken us a while to get there, but we figured it out along the way. We had a lot of help.
Yes.
And each one of us has been putting in a lot of work individually with our relationship with God, which has tremendously helped our relationship with each other.
Yeah.
So I hope that, you know, if there was something that you wish you would have had or talked about before getting married or would have known, just leave it in the comment. Let us know, you know, like how things might have been different. You know, it's amazing to think back and we've been married now for going on 15 years. And it's a long time, you know, considering how old we are and stuff. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope that it was just encouraging for you guys as well. I know thinking back on all this stuff, it's like, man, we've come a long way.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I'm really proud of us.
God's been good. So before we leave, I want to just, you know, take this verse and put it into practice this week. Yes. And as you talk to your spouse, as you are married or you're not married or you're in that area, you know, keep this verse in the forefront of your mind. It's in Proverbs 3:5, and it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. When you submit to him and you really acknowledge him and put him in everything that you're doing, like, you're going to be okay. He's going to make sure that you go where you need to go. In our situation, we literally, Pastor would call us TNT because that's where we were. We were dynamite. But because we submitted to God and we put him in our forefront and we put him in the beginning of what we were doing and in the craziness of our marriage, and we kept putting him there, he straightened our path. Yeah. He put the people that we needed in front of us. He put information that we needed in front of us. You know, back then there was no podcast, but there was workshops, there were classes and leadership and retreats, and we took advantage of those. Yeah. So submit to him and he's going to straighten your path. Just remember that.
Amen to that. Let's pray.
Okay.
Lord, thank you for every person that's listening to this podcast. I pray that your spirit will just be working in them and working through them in their families to allow them to reach those goals that they desire in their heart. Help them, Lord, to aspire to be the change that they hope to see in their life and in their family. I pray that as they make some adjustments, as they're listening to this message, that they would be able to connect with a group or with people or with us, Lord, and allow that they would just start beginning to look for ways to put this into practice, to be able to bring about the change that they may need. Lord, we thank you for everyone listening. We thank you for how far you've brought us in our marriage. Lord, and although we're not perfect, Lord, we're definitely not where we started, and we're grateful for that. Help us as well to keep growing and continue on the path that you created for us. In Jesus' name.
Amen.